Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a word you hear, well, absolutely everywhere lately. It often comes with this sort of feeling of luxury, maybe exclusivity. Bespoke.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It pops up all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, tailoring, that's its traditional home, sure.
Right.
But then you see it for software, vacations, furniture. I even saw a bespoke pizza mentioned.
Exactly, pizza. And that huge range, that's why people react so strongly, I think. For some, bespoke is the real deal, unique, handcrafted, top-tier custom work. But for others, it just sounds like marketing fluff, something stuck on a label to sound fancy.
And that's the core of it, isn't it? That
So our mission, basically, is to track down where bespoke actually came from, follow its journey, which seems pretty fascinating.
It is.
See how its meaning stretched, like, way beyond where it started, and try to understand why it causes such a stir today. Let's figure out what bespeak really meant back then and, well, now.
Okay, sounds good. So the absolute beginning, where does bespoke actually originate?
Well, it feels linked to speak, doesn't it? It's like something's been spoken for. Am I on the right track?
You've absolutely nailed the core idea.
Yeah.
Bespoke is technically the past participle adjective. It comes from the verb bespeak.
Oh, okay.
And if you trace bespeak back, you go through Middle English bespeaken and then all the way back to Old English bespreeken. It's what linguists call a common Germanic compound.
And bespreeken, that just meant to speak, like generally.
Initially, yeah, something like to call out or to speak about, but you know how words are, they evolve?
Yeah.
And bespeak in English ended up with a really wide range of meanings over the centuries. Our sources list things like to speak about, to speak against, to accuse, to complain, request, discuss, arrange.
Wow, okay.
And importantly, for where we're heading, to order goods.
Order goods. So like saying, I will bespeak a jacket from that tailor.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
That sense of ordering goods is recorded from the late 16th century, and it's from that meaning speaking for something, arranging it ahead of time, that we get bespoke as an adjective meaning custom-made or made to order.
Right.
People were using bespoken with a similar meaning around 1600, and the adjective bespoke itself, we see that by about 1755.
Okay, so for hundreds of years, the word really carried the sense of something being specifically requested, right? Commissioned.
Right.
Spoken for by one person.
That's it, precisely. It wasn't just off the rack. It was specifically marked out for you.
So flash forward to today. When we hear bespoke, I think like 99% of people probably picture a really sharp suit, probably from Savile Row in London, that classic image. Is that where the word first really latched onto goods, like describing products?
Well, this is where it gets quite interesting, actually, because while that connection to tailored suits is incredibly strong now, I mean, the phrase bespoke suit almost is the word for many people.
Yeah, definitely.
The sources show our earliest concrete evidence for the adjective bespoke back in the mid-18th century. It wasn't actually for suits.
Get out. Really? So what was it for them?
Well, examples from around that time describe bespoke work for things like corsets, they called them stays back then, and footwear, boots, and shoes. There are actual advertisements we found mentioned from places like Charleston, South Carolina, and Belfast in Ireland, late 18th century, talking about bespoke work done by shoemakers.
Corsets and shoes. That really doesn't fit the modern Savile Row image, does it?
Not at all.
Was it only clothing-related things, though, even back then?
And not even just apparel, which is also surprising. One source mentions it being used in the theater world. Yeah, in the second half of the 18th century, they talk about plays being bespoke, meaning they were specifically commissioned or, written for a particular event or a patron.
A bespoke play. That's amazing. I never would have guessed that. So, okay, how did it get so tightly linked with tailoring then? Specifically, suits.
That deep connection, it definitely solidified over time. By the late 17th century, among tailors, especially the ones who would eventually become the heart of Savile Row bespoke, became their sort of internal term, the term of art, for the absolute highest level of custom work.
Ah, okay. The top tier.
Right, and that influence just grew. The specific phrase bespoke suit starts appearing much more frequently in the mid-19th century. And that really cemented it globally through the 19th and 20th centuries as the gold standard description for high-end custom tailoring.
Okay, so let's dig into that. In that traditional tailoring world, Savile Row especially, what is that highest level? What actually makes something bespoke in their eyes? Because I think this is the really crucial point that gets, well, a bit fuzzy today.
Yeah, and this is something our sources, especially the ones focused on traditional craft, are very clear about. At its absolute heart, Traditional bespoke tailoring means the pattern for the garment is drawn entirely from scratch.
From scratch, not just tweaking an existing one.
No, exactly. Not modifying a standard block. It's created uniquely, based purely on that one client's detailed measurements, their posture, their specific body shape. Think starting with a completely blank sheet of paper for every single client.
Wow.
And critically, it involves multiple fittings while the garment is being made.
Right.
The suit, or whatever it is constructed in stages. It's often held together with temporary loose stitches, basting stitches sometimes called.
Okay.
And that allows the tailor over several fitting sessions to make really subtle, precise adjustments, tweaking the fit, the drape, directly on the client's body.
So it's genuinely collaborative, isn't it? An iterative thing, almost sculpting the clock to that specific person.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. And it relies very heavily on skilled handwork. Lots of hand stitching throughout the process, from cutting that unique pattern to sewing crucial parts of the garment, like buttonholes, linings, collars.
Okay.
So that from-scratch pattern, the multiple interactive fittings, and the significant hand finishing that is the traditional benchmark for proper bespoke tailoring.
Right. So how does that stack up against terms we hear maybe more often now, like custom or especially made to measure, MTM? Because, sometimes those seem to get used almost interchangeably with bespoke.
Yeah, they do. And the sources, particularly those coming from within these industries, they draw a very clear line. Custom can be a bit vague, a broad term, but made to measure, or MTM, or sometimes made to order, MTO, that usually starts with a pre-existing standard pattern, a template, basically.
Okay, a starting block.
Exactly. They take your measurements, and then they adjust that standard pattern to fit your size. It's more like modifying an existing blueprint rather than drawing a completely new one from scratch.
Ah, I see. So you're choosing options, maybe fabric, buttons, lapel style, that kind of thing.
Right.
And they adjust the sizing, but the underlying shape, the foundation, it comes from that preset pattern.
Correct. MTM or MTO definitely offers customization. You get choices. But the depth of consideration for your unique posture, your shoulder slope, how you stand things that a bespoke tailor obsesses over when drafting the pattern, it's generally less in MTM.
Right.
And there's usually less handwork involved, often more machine construction, and typically maybe only one fitting, perhaps two at most. And they're often focused on just basic adjustments like sleeve length or jacket waist.
Yeah.
As one tailoring source put it, MTM is based on generalized body shapes, whereas bespoke aims to account for every aspect of a client's unique shape.
That distinction makes perfect sense of that story we saw in the online forums, doesn't it? The person trying to buy a door.
Oh, that anecdote was great, yeah, because it really highlights the confusion people run into now. Remember, the salesperson kept saying the doors were completely bespoke. But then when the customer started asking about specific design features they wanted, the salesperson said, oh no, those weren't an option.
Right. Not an option on your bespoke door.
Exactly. And the salesperson eventually clarified, well, they meant made to measure for your house, which, as the customer pointed out, surely every single door has to be right.
Of course. It just shows how much the term is getting stretched, doesn't it?
It really does. So, okay, historically rooted in being spoken for, defined very rigorously in tailoring from-scratch patterns, multiple fittings, handwork.